are the best wide receivers in the NFL today. Welcome, football fans, to another BLV NFL rankings video. In this video, I rank the top 32 wide receivers in the NFL entering 2025. If that sounds good, Gronk, spike the like button if you want more rankings at tight end, offensive line, offense, defense, and everything in between. Then Gronk, spike the like button, because that's the only way I know that you want more. Let me know in the comments which wide receivers are too high, which wide receivers are too low, and which wide receiver was not on the list that should be on the list. And subscribe, jabroni. These wide receivers are the top 32 in the NFL based on my criteria: production, talent, and consistency. Let's get to it. The top 32 wide receivers entering 2025. Not the best from 2024, okay? At number 32, Chris Olave of the New Orleans Saints. Olave was looking like quite the receiver through his first two seasons. 1,000 yards, back-to-back campaigns, despite some up and down quarterback play in New Orleans. In year 3, he had a pretty big opportunity. Derek Carr, and then all of a sudden, he got hurt. And that's what we've seen from Chris Olave, and that's the uncertainty with Chris Olave entering 2025. Can the man stay healthy? He isn't exactly the biggest, most physical, thick wide receiver in the game. He isn't ideal for taking on contact. But Chris Olave has proven enough through his 3-year sample size or 2.5-year sample size that when he's on the field, he's a top 32 wide receiver. He's smooth. He is smooth. And he's quick and fast. And his ability to run routes, especially on the perimeter of an offense, is crisp. And that's why I like Olave. He's not really gonna jump ball, box you out, and win a physical battle. He's not gonna line up in the slot and take damage and continue to get yak. But what he does is he just absolutely routes cornerbacks up on the perimeter of an offense at about a 7 to 20 yard clip at a time. And that has proven to be a successful formula in his game in the NFL. Speed, quickness, and the ability to be smooth and consistent in his route running and separation. Even this season, he was 22nd in yards per route run. So still a top 32 name, a guy that might be slipping under the radar entering 2025. Despite his age, he's still very young, but he is injured and he maybe is injury prone. Hopefully he can stay healthy, and if he can, he will remain on this list because he is talented enough to be at number 32. At number 31, Rashee Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs. Rashee Rice also got injured in 2024. That's why he's only 31. I'm not really sure where to put Rashee Rice on this list, but all I know is that he deserves to be on the list. As a rookie, he was dynamic, allowing the Chiefs to get a number 1 wide receiver by the end of their Super Bowl run, their eventual Super Bowl victory. He was highly impactful and influential in their playoff run. Actually, in 2023, he was top 10 in yards per route run. He was also second in yak per reception. But in 2024, he looked like a guy that was about to be a top 15, top 10 producing wide receiver. He was about to take over the receiving role, the number one guy for Patrick Mahomes. But everything got derailed when Patrick Mahomes injured him. People forget about that, but that's actually what happened. He was averaging 72 yards per game, and on 29 targets, he caught 24 of them. He was going crazy early in the season, and what he does best is he's got a good combination of size, balance, yak ability, and the ability to eat space in the middle of the field. So he's going to catch the ball over the middle. He's going to be able to read the soft spots in the zone, be on the same page with Patrick Mahomes, and he's very savvy and quick and elusive when he gets that first move on a defender. It's really hard to tackle him within those closing space of once he gets the football, right? Once he gets the football in his hands, he can beat you with quickness. He can beat you with balance, size. He's hard to defend in that area. He's not a guy that's necessarily going to beat you down the field, although he showcased a touch of that as a rookie. But I would say that he's more so going to be the Chiefs' chain mover, their yak demon, and somebody that's going to probably replace long-term the Travis Kelce effect of being Patrick Mahomes' chain mover, third down guy, 90 to 100 catches a year. That's what it was looking like in 2024. And that's what I believe he will be in 2025, as long as he stays healthy and as long as he stays out of trouble. He has some competition in that room with Worthy, another guy that could make his way on this list in the future, and Hollywood Brown, a guy that's been on this list in the past. But I believe Rashee Rice is the best of the bunch, and I believe he's the guy that works the most important area of the field for the Chiefs, which is that 5 to 10 to 15 yard area that creates after the catch for Patrick Mahomes. So that's why I have him at number 31. At number 30, Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans. Calvin Ridley, unlike the past two guys, stayed healthy. And staying healthy, he got another 1,000-yard season. That's just what he does. Calvin Ridley, whether it's Atlanta or it's Tennessee, he's proven to be consistent in terms of he can rack up 1,000 yards. And I actually felt like 2024 was a pretty unique season for him because he was often seen as the downfield target of this offense. He was actually a very deep targeted player. That was kind of similar to Jacksonville. And what caught me off guard was his first season in Tennessee, and I forgot to even mention that he was a 1,000-yard receiver with Jacksonville, I believe, as well. So Atlanta, Jacksonville, Tennessee. That proves his value. That proves that he's top 32. It proves that he's consistent. It proves that with different quarterbacks, different systems, different coaches, that he still puts up production. That's impressive. Now, there's some reasons why I don't rank him higher, which I'm about to get to. But I first believe that the unique nature of his game, really since returning from the suspension, has been that he has been an outside wide receiver pretty much all the time. He's always facing press coverage. He's always facing the best corners in the game. And he's always having to run the deep route tree of the offense. Whether it was in Jacksonville or Tennessee, that's how they treated him. So when you look at his numbers, he's not going to create a lot of yak. He's really not that type of player anyways. But because he's being targeted down the field, he oftentimes is not going to get those yak opportunities, okay? But 34th in yards per route run. He also was a bit inconsistent due to his role. But I kind of wonder if 15.9 yards per reception, like that speaks to his role of often getting targeted on the perimeter down the field. I wonder if that's the offense. I wonder if that's the inconsistency of the quarterback play that he's seen. I wonder if that's him. Like, I'm kind of wondering if he could be more of the player that I felt like he was earlier in his career with the Falcons, where it was like he could be a 100-catch guy because he was such a crisp and detailed route runner. But it feels like he's become more of an explosive option in the NFL. 64 catches on 120 targets. Like, that's not a great percentage, right? So a lot of these are like low percentage looks, but he's still turning them into production. So he doesn't have the most explosiveness. He's not the fastest. He often doesn't run by you, but he's still clean enough, crisp enough, and detailed enough in his routes where he still creates leverage and separation, especially down the field. And he's still very good at tracking the ball and finding the ball with his hands. And so I feel like he's a good receiver, but I don't really know if he's ever going to be very good to great anymore because he just doesn't have that element of explosiveness like some others. He doesn't have that element of yak or elusiveness like others have. And it feels like he's no longer the guy that can get like 8 to 10 catches in a game. It feels like he is the guy that they're counting on to be the explosive guy. And to me, there's just a little bit more vulnerability and volatility in that role. So Calvin Ridley's at number 30. Consistent, productive, but the talent, I just wonder if it's extremely valuable. So that's why I have him at number 30. At number 29, George Pickens of the Dallas Cowboys. Pretty similar idea here to Calvin Ridley in terms of perimeter wide receiver, but I believe that George Pickens is more explosive than Calvin Ridley. But he brings his own issues, right? George Pickens brings the volatility of his mind. Sometimes he might lose his marbles, okay? But George Pickens does, I feel, when he gets the opportunity, he creates with the ball in his hands at times. He's very violent as a wide receiver. He stiff arms you in the face. He looks to punch you, give you an uppercut like Mike Tyson. Like, this guy just does not care, okay? And so I believe Pickens is great going up in the air and just finding the football, contorting his body in such a incredible fashion. I just think that his game and his personality brings a lot of volatility to any team that he's on. But he was 25th in yards per route run last year with over 2 yards per route run. He had a 900-yard season, which was a dip from the year previous. But when you consider he had Russell Wilson, he was in Pittsburgh, it wasn't the greatest passing offense or the most volume that anyone would ever see. Like, I could see him having a 1,000-yard season despite being a wide receiver 2 in Dallas because of the more opportunities, more passes that are going to come. And maybe that also helps him kind of calm down because he's behind CeeDee Lamb. He's not expected to be the go-to guy. He can more so be that explosive guy for the offense, which kind of does help the weakness of CeeDee Lamb. And at the same time, he's going to have more volume come his way, so he's going to be a happier guy in the offense. So, great contested catcher, can beat you with yards after catch with physicality and speed, and great, I feel, combination of just pure height, size, hands, and speed. Like a really nice profile overall. So George Pickens at number 29. Not quite the separator or route runner that some others are, which is the weakness of his game. Not as nuanced as a Calvin Ridley, but more raw and more impactful and influential through explosive plays. At number 28, Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. Sutton is kind of like the older, more mature, more refined version of George Pickens. That's my opinion, okay? Sutton is a brilliant contested catch artist. Every season of his career, it feels like he's at the top of the league in terms of contested catches. He had 20 last season, which ranked 4th in the NFL. He also was top 6 in first downs as well, with 57. Now, his yards per route run was only 36th. Courtland Sutton is not a guy that is going to consistently be just taking volume, right? 81 catches for him last year is actually quite a lot, right? That's quite a lot for Courtland Sutton. The weird thing about Sutton is that until last year, where he went over 1,000 yards for the first time in a long time and had 8 touchdowns, he'd be like a 700, 750, 800-yard receiver over the last 3 years. I believe in 2023, he did have 12 or 13 touchdowns. He did have a lot of touchdowns with Russell Wilson in Denver that year, but he didn't have the yards. So last year with Bo Nix, he did go over 1,000 yards. He was their number 1 receiver, and he had some awesome games. And he is a guy that I feel like as a deep route runner with this subtle ability to separate down the field with, I think, underrated speed, but then he just has insane size and then the insane contortion and body control and just ability to track the football. Like, this guy is a problem in double coverage. He'll catch the ball. Okay, so yeah, Courtland Sutton, really not a player after the catch, like 103rd in yak per reception, and he only forced one missed tackle. That's pretty crazy. Like, that was 102nd in the NFL. So he's giving you pretty much nothing once he catches the ball, but his entire route tree, especially for this new Denver team, is he's lining up on the outside, he's a red zone specialist, he's a downfield specialist, and he's their 15 to 20 yard chunk guy. And he's often being calculated by Sean Payton in the game plan to be able to get that calculated shot down the field or a one-on-one jump ball opportunity from Bo Nix with the feel that he has within a game. So yeah, Sutton, he's risen, he's back, but I feel like the inconsistencies over the last few years, the injuries over the last few years, his age, his one-dimensionality, that's why he's only 28 and not like 22 or 21. So that's why I have him here on the list. At number 27, there are so many subtleties, guys, by the way, that are going into these rankings. Like, as you guys can already see, these players are all incredible, okay? It's just there's small things that are going into ranking each one of these guys where I have them ranked. I think about this a lot. And at number 27, it's no different with Jaxon Smith-Njigba. With Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the thing with him is he's one of the best chain mover wide receivers. He's one of the better short area quickness, yak, even to a certain degree. Like, if you want to make the first guy miss, Jaxon Smith-Njigba is great. Now, if you want to take a 5-yard gain into a 50-yard gain, he's not your guy. But a 2-yard gain into an 8-yard gain, he's definitely your guy. At the same time, he's really hard to cover from the slot, but he does not play on the outside. But at the same time as that, he also demands targets because of how much separation he can create, how good he is against zone coverage just by feeling where the defenders are at, and how comfortable and confident he is with his hands, and how good he is on third down. Like, that's something I immediately noticed last year with Geno Smith and his rapport. And I think just the ability to, like, command targets in an offense that also has DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, like, that's pretty impressive to do, right? Like, 100 catches, 100-plus catches with those guys in your offense at 22 years old. You saw that at Ohio State as well. Like, he was a phenom at Ohio State for a reason. Like, this guy, he gets the ball and he creates with it, 19th in missed tackles forced. He was only 39th in yards per route run because a lot of his yards are honestly due to volume, because he caught 100 passes on 137 targets, but a lot of them were short, right? His yards per target was 8.2, but he's just very crafty, and I think he's one of the quickest, most agile, sharp route runners from sideline to sideline, meaning from left to right. Like, he can stop one way, redirect the other way, come back with like a double move within like 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. So he's a pretty crazy horizontal route runner and change of direction player. And that's what I think makes him very special as a slot receiver. That's what I loved about him at Ohio State and coming out. And then the subtle movements after the catch to create just a little bit extra is what makes him, I think, a difference maker in the NFL. But he's not an explosive playmaker. He's not a downfield playmaker. If anything, he might catch like a 20, 25-yard crosser, but that's more so against zone coverage. It's typically not against like man coverage because typically he doesn't have the speed or the extra gear to separate vertically. He's more of a horizontal guy. So there's a lot of value in that, but at the same time, those players are more replaceable than the guys that can take the top off and can go crazy for a 50-yard gain in one play. So at number 27, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, very promising future. You could rank him higher just based on the fact that he's only 22 and he's already catching 100 passes in a year. Like, that's really impressive. At number 26, Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy is kind of like Jaxon Smith-Njigba in my opinion. Very crisp, agile, smart route runners. But Jerry Jeudy has, I think, taken extra nuance and I would say, cut the fat from his game quite substantially. What I mean by that is he used to be a player that was very flashy, and when he would run routes, he would almost do too much. But now he has become more refined, and I don't think that's, a bad thing at all. Like, that's actually a great thing for his game, that he's become more nuanced, more streamlined. And that allowed him to go for 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. In fact, not just 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards on 90 catches. And what I think separates Jerry Jeudy from Jaxon Smith-Njigba, they're very close, but I think Jeudy is just more versatile. I think in an offense where you want to line him up at the Z, you can use him in that role. If you want to line him up in the slot, you can use him in that role. I think he's equally proficient in both spots. I think he's also just a better perimeter, more downfield route runner than a Jaxon Smith-Njigba. But he can almost equal Jaxon Smith-Njigba in a slot role as well, because he also has quickness and jitteriness in his game. He was 7th in first downs as a chain mover with 57. None of his other advanced stats are extremely impressive. And honestly, there are some questions about Jeudy just because how much of his production was based on the fact that they didn't really have anybody else. Like, after they traded Amari Cooper, he was just extremely driven by volume. But he was also the only guy that any team had to cover. Like, he was also not exactly dealing with the greatest quarterback play in the world. And I think there's something to be said about going from Denver to a new team and all of a sudden actually finding the production that people thought you might get when you were drafted so highly because you were such a great prospect. So it's found his role. He's found his role. It's taken him some time, and it's taken him some nuance. It's taken him some practice. But I feel like Jerry Jeudy at 26, which is still young, has finally found his place in the NFL. And I think it's as a low-end wide receiver one that can do a lot of different things, that can be versatile for an offense, that can create after the catch, that can move the chains. He's not extremely fast. He's not extremely powerful, but he is a very good route runner that can create consistent separation, and in games can go for multiple touchdowns and or 10 catches. And that's a great value. So at number 26, Jerry Jeudy. At number 25, Jameson Williams of the Detroit Lions. Now, Jameson Williams, I'm taking a bit of a risk by ranking him at 25, but I don't think people realize how good Jameson Williams was last year. Like, I think this is a ranking where people are going to be like, whoa, Jameson Williams at 25, that's kind of surprising, right? But he did have 1,000 yards last year, and I only believe he played 15 games. But more importantly, he only caught 58 passes, and he had 1,000 yards, which means he caught 17 yards per reception. He had 7 touchdowns on 58 catches. He went for 66.7 yards per game, 24th in yards per route run, which was better than Jeudy, better than Jaxon Smith-Njigba, better than Calvin Ridley, better than the guys I've already mentioned, even Courtland Sutton, okay? He was also 3rd in yak per reception. He's one of the best yak players in the NFL because he is so explosive. His speed, and more importantly, his acceleration is just ridiculous. It is wicked. Like, he gets the ball, whether it's off of a play action, like deep dig route or like crossing route, and he just takes off like a jet for like 15 more yards with ease. Or you've seen him on jet sweeps, get the ball with a head of steam, and it's just a problem. Or he just runs by the defense. So I don't think he's going to be ever a target volume machine. One, because they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is that. But then at the same time, he's not the thickest guy. So I feel like contact and areas where defenses are more clogged, it's going to be difficult for him to operate because his game isn't exactly physicality and working through the mud and working through bodies. You know what I'm saying? He needs space to operate. But when he gets space, he is as good as anybody in the NFL. He's as explosive, as big of a problem, as big of a game changer as any receiver in football because his speed is next level. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he was as fast, as worthy as Tyreek Hill. He's in the same category, guys. Like, he is fast, okay? So, he is a game changer on a limited play basis. He does not need a lot of plays to change a game. Now, there's a lot of value in that. At the same time, there's not a lot of consistency in that. So we need to see more production consistency out of Jameson Williams. If he can continue to do that, he's going to continue to rank higher on this list. That's what's missing in his game, is consistent years of the same thing repeating. Because last year, no receiver was quite like him. Like, his yards per catch was above 8, and his yards after catch was above 8. There was no receiver even close to that in the NFL. So, he's at number 25. At number 24, Devonta Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles. With 24, I feel like there's a bit of a tier gap going into guys that maybe didn't have their best year last year, but are just consistently proving that they're one of the better receivers in football, or that they're like around the top 20 in the NFL. Like, this is a separation point where maybe they didn't play amazing in 2024, but they still have the talent. They're still youthful enough, and they've shown a level of consistency. The guys behind them maybe just had a breakout season, have had years where they weren't at their best. So at number 24, Devonta Smith still had 833 yards, 64 yards per game, which if he would have played the entire year would have been about 1,100 yards. So just to put that into perspective, he also had 8 touchdowns, and he was 23rd in yards per route run. This is still an impressive season for Devonta Smith, considering the Eagles threw the least amount of passes in the NFL. They were dead last in pass attempts. Now, what bugs me about Devonta Smith is it's difficult to kind of understand what he is really, really good at, because he's lanky. He's got really good speed, but his speed isn't elite. He's really good as a route runner and very nuanced, I would say, especially at the second and the third level. But he's not big. He's not a contested catch guy. He's not overly physical. He's not great after the catch. So I'm going through all these categories, and it's like, he's not a speed demon. He's not a big, bad receiver. But I think what makes him great is he has this just unique ability to move. He has this like weird, it's not even agility. It's like a malleability, like this like gumbiness in his movements, where I feel like it allows him to separate at the top of his routes. I feel like he's a tall guy, sort of, that has like, just, he has a really weird body shape, but he's also really quick. So he's more of a route runner, I guess. You would categorize him more as a route runner, but yeah, it's just, I feel like too, like with AJ Brown in his offense, he's never really been able to truly showcase if he could produce at like a top 10, top 12 level. I do wonder, you know, he did play more slot snaps than we've ever seen him play last year, thanks to the Kellen Moore influence of the offense. And he still was highly productive in big games last year, as we've seen throughout his career, including college. He just always shines on the biggest stage. And he is a really big threat as a number 2 receiver. Like, there's not a lot of number 2 corners that can keep up with him, that can cover him. You have to get hands on him. You have to be physical with him. But the problem is, like, he can snap off a route, or he can beat you with speed if you're not careful, or he can beat you, you know, just by, I think, his nuance in his game. So, yeah, Devonta Smith, very good player, has been consistently productive, consistently dangerous, and I think he's shown to thrive as a downfield target or as an intermediate target in different seasons, in different areas, in different times in his career. So at number 24, Devonta Smith. At number 23, DJ Moore of the Chicago Bears. DJ Moore, he didn't have his best year last year, but DJ Moore is one of those guys that has consistently been very good and has consistently shown that he is a top 25 receiver in the NFL. Like, even last year, he only had 966 yards, 9.9 yards per reception. But I believe that that was more based on the offense than it was DJ Moore, because the year previous, he had 1,300 yards. Okay, and I think over 10 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. But last year, he still had 98 catches. Like, 98 catches is still very good. He also proved to still be very dangerous after the catch, putting up 6.1 yak per reception, which was 20th in the NFL, 15 missed tackles forced, which was 13th in the NFL. Despite only being 67th in yards per route run, DJ Moore still, to me, is number 23 because I think he showcased so many different areas where he can be effective. Whether it's as last year, the screen guy. Like, honestly, so many of his targets were on screens, RPOs, quick passes, because Caleb was struggling to throw the ball past 5 yards last year. He was struggling to throw the ball down the field. So it's hard for DJ Moore to be the guy that he was with Justin Fields, where that was what Justin Fields was good at, going down the field, explosive plays, but he had less receptions, right? Like, so DJ Moore's proven to be both. He's had 3 or 4 different seasons of 90 plus catches. He's had 3 or 4 1,000-yard seasons. He's had years where he's great after the catch. He's actually been only one of 5 guys to be top 5 in yak the last 3 years. So DJ Moore is in that category where he's great after the catch. And I just think it's because of the way he's built. He's like 6'1"-ish, pretty thick for a wide receiver, almost like a running back-like body. And it allows him to stay very balanced. He can take on contact well. He's got very good balance. He's got very good agility. But at the same time, he's got the speed to threaten deep, right? So DJ Moore, he's just able to be the slot guy, the yak guy, the downfield guy, everything, like all in one. That doesn't mean necessarily that he's elite, though, because I don't think his production has consistently been there with the elite guys. At the same time, he has had so many different quarterbacks. Like, you think about Carolina, you think about Chicago. So there's so many different conversations here to be had with DJ Moore. Not his best season last year. You wonder if he's slowing down a little bit, but at the same time, he's having to adjust to what's around him all the time. So that's why I have him at number 23. At number 22, Brandon Aiyuk of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Aiyuk was really difficult to rank because last year he barely played, okay? He only went for 374 yards. He did not score a touchdown, and he had 25 catches. A year after being one of the best receivers in the NFL, like legitimately a top 10 wide receiver in football in 2023, the best receiver on the San Francisco 49ers, whether you want to believe it or not, in 2023, the year that they went to the Super Bowl and were the number 1 offense in the NFL. So, in other words, Brandon Aiyuk this year did not play well after getting the contract, after sitting out of, training camp, not training, looking a little bit pudgy, entering the season, and getting injured, unfortunately. There's been a lot of drama, and I'm trying not to allow that drama off the field to feed my ranking here as well. But in 2023, he was the best receiver on the best offense in the NFL. Okay? So, what I like about Brandon Aiyuk when he's at his best is he is very complete. He's got good size, not great size, but good size. He's got good speed, not great speed, but good speed. He's really good after the catch because he's very agile and he's very, contortable, let's call it. I think I called a guy previously Gumby-like. That's kind of like Brandon Aiyuk. It's strangely enough for a guy that's more of a 6'1", 6'2" type of frame. He still has that agility, stop, change of direction type of ability. He's also very good at stopping, starting, and then the ability to just cut his routes. Like, he is a very crisp, sharp route runner. His out-breaking routes are phenomenal. His in-breaking routes, he can line up anywhere. That's what I also love about him. He can be the X, he can be the Z, he can be the slot, he can go in motion, he can catch a screen, he can go deep and catch the ball and make a phenomenal catch. He's great on the sidelines catching the ball. Brandon Aiyuk just has so much value because he can really play any role for any offense in the NFL. And he's used in so many different ways by Kyle Shanahan. But most importantly, I feel like he's been the X for them, for Brock Purdy. And when he's been at his best, I feel like he's been that route running, separating X that can create when the ball is in his hands. So this year he enters a new season where he's having to, improve his health. get back on the field, get quicker, faster, stronger after the injury. We'll see how he looks. It'll probably take him some time to get up to speed, but ultimately, because of his all-around value that I feel like DJ Moore has, like we just talked about, but a lot of these receivers behind him don't really have, and given the last time he was healthy, he was a top 10 receiver, I find myself putting him around 22 on the list. At number 21, DK Metcalf of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Metcalf is not the most refined, not the most well-rounded wide receiver in football, which is where you struggle with his ranking. But at the same time, he is one of the most explosive. He is big, he is fast, and he is an animal. He is a beast. He is a lot to contain. When DK Metcalf is at his best, he can change the game with 2 plays. Like, he can moss a guy, he can run by a guy, he can overpower a guy. DK Metcalf is a physical force on a football field, and it's hard to replicate that. Now he's in Pittsburgh. We'll see how he works with Aaron Rodgers and how that goes. I think the one area where that could shine is his contested catch ability. Last year, he was 14th in contested catches. He had 15 last year, which was one of his better numbers of his career. But thinking about that, he has the ability to create contested catch opportunities for himself because he's so physical. His frame is so big. He's so wide. It's hard for a small corner. Like, there is no corner in the league that is bigger than DK Metcalf. He is wider. He is bigger. His wingspan is longer. Like, his hands are massive. So think about that threat on top of the speed of basically an Olympian. So that's what we're talking about when it comes to DK Metcalf. Like, sure, he can't run the best slant in the NFL. He can't run the best option route. You probably don't want to play him in the slot unless he's going vertically. But the things that he does well, he's really, really good at them. And he's very dangerous. So 992 yards last year, 66 catches, 66 yards per game. He did miss a few games. Not his best season production-wise overall. He's had much better years, 1,200-yard years, 10-plus touchdown seasons. He can control a game. He can take over a game. He's one of the guys that in this range that I feel like can actually dominate at an elite level, but he just does not have the consistency, the refinement, the well-roundedness of the elite guys. So that's why I have him at number 21. Entering the top 20, Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens. I'm a huge Zay Flowers fan. I have since seeing him at Boston College. You know, I think Zay Flowers was great last year, had a breakout season for Baltimore, but I do kind of project a little bit onto this. I feel like Zay is going to be even better next year. I think he could be a top 12 receiver in the NFL next season. I wouldn't be that surprised. Zay Flowers is just in a league full of unique players, unique athletes, more importantly. There is honestly no one in the league that moves like Zay Flowers. I think I can say that with honesty, and I think you know what I'm talking about. Like, Zay Flowers might be the quickest dude in the league. Like, his stop-start agility is absolutely ridiculous. Like, it is like Antonio Brown type of stop-start quickness and agility when he gets the ball in his hands. He is really tough to stop. Missed tackles forced, he was 8th in the NFL last year with 18. He was also top 16 in yards per route run with 2.25, and he had the 23rd most first downs with 48. He was 17th in yak per reception, 6.3. So as you can see by those stats, he is more of a yak guy. He's more of a get the ball to me and I'll make something happen because of that agility. But as he continues to grow in the NFL, he's going to continue to get better and better and better as a route runner. And that's a scary thought because this is a guy that has unique quickness, very good speed. He is not like just like Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Jerry Jeudy level. Like, he has an extra gear of speed, kind of like DJ Moore. He's a little bit undersized, kind of like DJ Moore as well. But I think he's got the twitchiness that separates him moving forward from DJ Moore, as well as their age and projection. But Flowers still was at 14.3 yards per catch, despite, being a guy that oftentimes would get thrown a screen or a bubble screen or a handoff. Like, he's one of the manufactured touch guys that can also be a really good route running, separating receiver in moments. He's not always good enough to overcome elite corners that cover him. That's kind of like where I feel like he needs to take that next step, being able to dominate the very good corners. I feel like at times you can shadow him and take him out of a game if you really want to. But I feel like the way that Baltimore utilizes him, it's really difficult for you to do that because he's moving everywhere. He's outside, he's inside, he's motioning, he's getting a screen. So he's a really well calculated and used weapon by the Baltimore offense. But at the same time, I still kind of feel like he has that extra gear to go. So yeah, Zay Flowers at number 20 for me. At number 19, Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Man, I've talked about it many times. When Godwin went down, that put a tear to my eye, literally. Like, watching Chris Godwin get injured at the end of a game against the Ravens, funny enough, that was kind of out of reach already. That was a terrible injury because Chris Godwin was really having one of the best seasons of his career. He was leading the NFL in receptions at the time, and he was carving up defenses for 82 yards per game. Now, the difficulty is, based on last year, Chris Godwin was a top 15, top 10 producing player at the position. But he's coming off another serious injury. So how high can I really rank him? 50 catches, 576 yards in half a season, essentially. He also was 13th in yak per reception and 10th in yards per route run last year, which speaks to how elite he was when he played. Godwin is one of the toughest, if not the toughest receiver in football. He's got very strong hands and fearlessness that I hope he never loses despite the injuries. He's also really good after the catch because he's got good vision with the ball. He's very balanced and strong when he takes on contact. And I think he's got enough agility to be able to kind of work in a phone booth, so to speak. So Godwin, just a really tough receiver. Old school, blue collar. I hope he comes back as good as ever. It's going to be difficult for him to do that, though. At number 18, Ladd McConkey of the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers. McConkey had a ridiculous rookie season. If not for a couple other rookies, I feel like we'd be talking about Ladd McConkey a lot more than we are. But statistically speaking, he was one of the best receivers in football last year. 71.8 yards per game, 1,149 yards, 82 catches, and 7 touchdowns. He was 9th in yards per route run, 14th in missed tackles forced, and he was 18th in first downs and 17th in contested catches, meaning he pretty much did everything well. He was top 20 in forcing missed tackles and top 20 in contested catches, despite being a small white receiver. That's pretty impressive. He's also a slot guy, okay? He I guess has some limitations because he's not much of a perimeter player, but I do feel like he has enough of that could also grow in his game, where he is just a problem because he's so good at snapping his routes, kind of like I talked about with Brandon Aiyuk. Their top of the route separation is wicked. The ability to change direction, the ability to accelerate, stop on a dime, or do a double move or change the route. It's just impeccable. So Ladd McConkey also has really good quickness, really good savviness, like a jitterbugness to his ability with the ball, which makes him difficult to tackle. But he has rare speed for a guy of his archetype. Okay, you don't often see a slot player like this. Never mind a white slot player, okay? But yeah, like he's like a high 4.3 guy. So he's not like Jaxon Smith-Njigba is like a 4.6, right? A 4.5 maybe. So like Ladd McConkey, we saw him run by defenses. We saw him go vertical. We saw him in the playoffs dominate one of the best secondaries in football for nearly like 200 yards. Right, so this guy is really difficult to one-on-one, man-to-man cover. And that's a huge skill. If you need a guy that can convert a third down, start a drive, he can do all that. Now, I do worry about his fragility. I worry about his thickness, his size, his ability to take on contact, and his ability to last, because that was a problem in college. But I do believe that when he is healthy, he is going to consistently carve up defenses because of his unique balance of route running detail, quickness, separation ability. So at number 18, Lad. At number 17, Jaylen Waddle, who is actually closer to like Lad McConkey. I feel like these two, basically the lean I had here was the consistency or the career of Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle did not have a great year last year. In fact, the Dolphins as a whole at wide receiver really did dip last season. Like, Jaylen Waddle only ended with 744 yards. He was 58th in yards per route run. That is not typical of Jaylen Waddle, a guy that's been over 1,000 yards every year of his career except for last year, I believe. And I think at one time went for a 1,300-yard season at his best. Jaylen Waddle, I think there's been arguments he's a top 10, top 12 receiver in the NFL, like as lately as last year, because Waddle is one of those rare guys that is wicked after the catch because he's quick, he's powerful, he's nasty, and he's also fast, okay? So he's got that underneath yak ability. He's got the vertical speed to challenge a defense down the field. He's got the versatility to go inside, outside. And I feel like he's got enough of the route refinement to be able to separate on the outside, the perimeter, on the intermediate, deep levels of the field, or the short change of direction level because he's so quick. So he's not powerful. He's not, in terms of his routes or like his releases and things like that, or his contested catch abilities. That's probably the weakness of his game. But I just feel like you get the ball in this guy's hands, he's twitchy, and you create routes where he has speed off of motion like Mike McDaniel does, or you create routes where he's changing a direction or he is headed on like an intermediate in-breaker. He's just like really tough because he snaps the route off and he accelerates at such a rate that is just tough to defend in man-to-man. And those levels of the routes and the depth of the routes, he's getting a better understanding inside this offense of how to accomplish that. So last year was not his best year, did not produce his best, but we've all seen him play at an elite level. And some of that has to do with his consistency to stay on the field and fight through injuries and be a little bit tougher and grittier. But at the same time, some of it was Tua getting injured. Some of it was Jonnu Smith's influence on the offense, Devon Achane's influence on the offense. I could expect a pretty big bounce back from Jaylen Waddle this year. No more Jonnu Smith. I think Tua might stay healthier this year. So Waddle should have another 1,000-yard campaign. But when you're talking about skill set, it's hard to find a guy that can be as dangerous underneath and over the top as Jaylen Waddle can with his quickness and his speed. At number 16, Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets. Garrett Wilson, just a little bit more consistent. I think he's a little bit tougher than Jaylen Waddle. 101 catches last year, 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns. He was also uniquely first in missed tackles forced. He is really hard to tackle. Garrett Wilson is not as quick or as fast as a Jaylen Waddle or even as a Lad McConkey. But he has this like terribly strange and terrifying ability to like manipulate his body when he has the ball. He has this like weird step back move where he like nearly can't get tackled. It's like a glitch in the Matrix. Like he can step back, bend his body backwards, and then continue to contort his body forward and then change direction with the ball to create something. He's like kind of like Jaxon Smith-Njigba, how I talked about the ability to create 2 yards into 10 yards that's Garrett Wilson. He's not going to go 10 to 50 because he doesn't have the speed, but he makes so many people miss in a phone booth. It's just so hard to get a hand on him the way that he moves his upper body. Okay, so that's why he's first in missed tackles forced. But the reason he's not higher, he was only 50th in yards per route run, right? And some of that is the Jets' offense. Some of that is the quarterback consistency, the offensive line consistency. There's just been so much inconsistency around Garrett Wilson. You know, on one hand, he's had 1,000 yards no matter how bad the situation has been. Last year was his best year with over 100 catches and 1,100 yards. He was 7th in first downs. But at the same time, he hasn't been able to truly be a difference-making number one upper echelon elite because the stability and consistency of the offense isn't quite there enough for him to deliver that. But I still feel like it's been good enough for him to be 16 on the list. So Garrett Wilson, I just kind of feel bad that he's never been put in a great situation. And once again, he'll be playing with Justin Fields this year, who we said earlier, you know, did some good things with DJ Moore. So maybe that's a good thing for Garrett Wilson. The other problem is with the Jets, more often than not, he's the only show in town. I know last year Davante Adams was there, but pretty much at all other times, he's the only guy worth covering. So that's going to be the case in 2025. But really awesome player, chain mover, inside, outside, and extremely difficult to tackle. So at number 16, Garrett Wilson. Entering the top 15, Davante Adams, his former teammate of the Los Angeles Rams. I think Garrett Wilson, you could make an argument, might be, obviously projection-wise, younger, all that sort of stuff. Maybe even with the Jets, you could make an argument he was the slightly better player. But Adams has just been more consistent over his career at a high clip. And I feel like even with the Raiders, he was a really good player for most of that time. He went to the Jets, felt like he got spammed quite frequently by Aaron Rodgers, and he was getting kind of force-fed to a certain degree. But I feel like, Adams still impressively put up 76 yards per game last year. That was like top 10, top 15 in the NFL. He had 8 touchdowns, which still showcases his red zone capacity. 85 catches, still showcases he can take the volume, right? No, extremely impressive advanced statistic. He's pretty good at forcing missed tackles, 18th. He's still pretty good yards per route run, 29th. Yak per reception was 25th. Contested catches was 17th. I just kind of think he's a lesser version of what he used to be, which is an extremely well-rounded player that can do everything damn well. But when he used to be at his best, it was more about his nuance, his intelligence, his quickness in his releases and his routes. I think maybe he's lost a little bit of speed, a little bit of quickness and jitteriness, and that's maybe been the downgrade of his game. But he still has so much intelligence, so much spatial awareness, so much in terms of just understanding the NFL, understanding football, understanding spacing, understanding how to attack a cornerback on a route. So that's something that never fades, right? That's that Larry Fitzgerald. That's why that guy played forever, right? That's kind of what Davante Adams has in him. And he's also just great at contorting his body, finding the football, back shoulder catches. He's been great with Aaron Rodgers with that sort of stuff too. I'm really excited to see him with Matthew Stafford because I feel like Stafford's going to throw him the ball no matter what. He's going to throw a piss missile into double coverage and fit the ball into this small of a window, kind of like Aaron Rodgers used to. And Stafford's going to read it by body language. And that's what Davante Adams has always been very good at, is he might not be open when you're looking at him now, but in a split second, as soon as he cuts that route, as soon as he puts his foot in the ground, Stafford's going to read that he's going to be open in a way that a lot of other quarterbacks can't, like a Jimmy Garoppolo with the Raiders. So at number 15, Adams is still awesome. He's just not quite the player he used to be and not quite producing at the same level either, which makes me move him down to the middle of this list. At number 14, T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. T. Higgins I thought last year opened my eyes to an even bigger degree. I've been a T. Higgins fan, but I thought last year might have been the best T. Higgins I've ever seen, just in terms of he's obviously always been incredible in terms of contested catches. Like last year, he had 14, which was 16th in the NFL, but he also was better after the catch. He forced 16 missed tackles. So I just felt like T. Higgins was better in terms of his quickness and his elusiveness and the ability to create something out of nothing. T. Higgins, 73 catches, 911 yards, 75.9 yards per game, 10 touchdowns. At his best, he was actually in the top 4 in fantasy points per game. So he didn't play all the games, obviously, but when he did play, he was producing, right? Touchdowns. This is a guy that's a weapon in the red zone because he might be the best contest catch artist in the NFL. His body movements, his contortion, his ability to just like find the football and make an incredible catch. His hands are just insane. Like this guy might have the best hands in football. He might have the best ability to track the football, spatial awareness when the ball is in the air. Just incredible, right? Like incredible stuff. So T. Higgins is also, I think, an underrated route runner. I don't think he's one of the top in the NFL, but I think that his ability to actually create separation at the top of his route is impressive. I don't think he's like the quickest or the best in terms of releasing, but I think once he gets into his route, he's able to create that separation due to rather boxing out with size or the subtle quickness and movements to be able to get that extra yard in front of the corner. So at number 14, T. Higgins, really impressive year. Game to game, maybe the best I've ever seen him play. At number 13, Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders. Terry McLaurin had an amazing season last year. One of the best stories of the Commanders last year was just watching Terry McLaurin on a good football team for the first time in his career. And watching the guy lead the NFL in contested catches with 24. That was first in the league. First downs, 8th in the NFL with 56. And the impressive part about him leading the NFL in contested catches, that's not the profile that he is. That's not the type of player that we believe him to be, right? We believe him to be scary Terry, burner, fast, get the ball, and he'll make a play with it, right? That's Terry McLaurin in my mind. Snap a route off with quickness and with just the ability to plant and go and accelerate. Like, that's Terry McLaurin. No, last year, he was not only the guy that could cut a post on a fine line 90 degrees and snap it back and create separation for a big play or run past you down the field, but he was also the guy that with a draped cornerback all over him would catch the ball where there was accurate placement from Jaden Daniels. 13 touchdowns last year speaks to his ability to catch the ball in confined space under pressure with tight coverage on him. So McLaurin wasn't exactly the best in terms of, overall, actually, like, his yards are still not exactly where I want it if I want to rank him in the top 10. Like, still not a year where he had 1,200 yards. Like, only 1,096. 82 catches is good, but it's not 90 or 100, right? His yards per route run was 32nd, right? Like, a lot of these other stats would suggest that he's a good, not great receiver, or like, that's why he's not quite top 10 for me. But just the fact that I feel like his skill set, he can do a lot of things, especially as a route runner, as a separator, as a guy that has speed. And now you add on that contested catch production, and it's hard to deny that he's the 13th best receiver in football. So just the stats aren't quite there. Like, he's had ridiculous consistency, but the elite production of like 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns. I guess he had it in terms of touchdowns last year, but catches and yards, I'm still waiting for that year where McLaurin has like 1,400, 1,500 yards. Maybe it's next year. It could happen. But at number 13, I have Terry McLaurin. At number 12, Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, this is the difference between Drake London and Terry McLaurin. McLaurin is faster. McLaurin is quicker. McLaurin's a better separator. But Drake London last year produced a season that's better than any season that Terry McLaurin has ever had. Last year, Drake London had 100 catches and 1,271 yards. Not only that, he was impressively 11th in yards per route run, 9th in missed tackles forced, 2nd in contested catches. Drake London might be the most underrated receiver in the NFL. Like, actually, when you look at his statistical profile from last year, how many receivers that are 6'5", 6'4", whatever he is, 6'6", I don't even know. He's huge. He's thick. He's not that fast, but he really learned how to separate last year. I felt like his ability to just, at the top of the route, snap his route, and we even saw this on the quarterback. If you guys are watching the Netflix documentary, quarterback documentary, Kirk Cousins is on it. And the game against, I think, the Eagles, and there might be another game, but he just consistently dominated in terms of his perimeter route running of about like 10 to 20 yards. And I thought in college he showcased a really underrated ability to create after the catch. That is translated to the NFL, right? He's top 10 in missed tackles forced because he's big and he's actually agile. Like, he's quick. Like, when he gets the ball in his hands, he can stop, start, and change direction pretty well, but he's just not fast, right? Like, I've been talking about this with other players. Like, he can't really go from 0 to 60, go from 10 yards to 50 yards. But when he gets a pass of 5 yards, he can make two guys miss and then get the first down because he's got that leverage. He's got the wingspan. He can reach across the line or whatever. And he's also a red zone threat, 9 touchdowns. He's got the size. He's got the frame. He's got the hands. He's just really good in all areas, Like, yards per route running speaks to his efficiency, his overall volume of 100 catches. 9 touchdowns speaks to his red zone proficiency. Contested catches second in the NFL. First downs third in the NFL. So chain mover, red zone target, downfield contested catch artist. It doesn't really matter. Drake London showcased that in his profile. So, and I think that next level that he has taken is he's become a more refined route runner, a better separator in the NFL. So at number 12, Drake London. At number 11, Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jacksonville Jags. I nearly ranked him number 10. Now, this is a bit of a projection because he was a rookie last year, but Brian Thomas Jr. was third. Guys, Brian Thomas Jr., BTJ, was third in the NFL in yards receiving in the NFL last year as a rookie. Third, not 11th, not 10th, not 17th, third, with 1,282 yards. Probably the sneakiest 75 yards per game, 10 touchdown season, 87 catches as a rookie that we've ever seen. Like, not a lot of people are actually talking about Brian Thomas Jr. from a mainstream perspective, but he's already one of the best receivers in football because there's just not a lot of players that you're going to find that are 6'4", 6'5", that run a 4.3 and that are so dangerous at running by you that you are backpedaling like a madman, and then he can snap his route off and you're giving up a 25-yard gain because he ran a comeback. So Brian Thomas Jr., what he does well is the most valuable area that a receiver can dominate. He can double move you, he can run by you, he can beat you deep, and then he can also have enough route running chops and quickness to be able to snap routes at 15, 20, 25 yards and be able to separate, okay? 6th in yards per route run. So it wasn't just that he had volume. No. He was 6th in the NFL in yards per route run as a rookie. So now imagine what's going to happen in year 2, year 3. He did this with Mac Jones for a majority of the year, and he still had double-digit touchdowns. So he wasn't just a volume reception guy where he still had 87 catches, right? He wasn't just a yards guy without touchdowns. No, he had 10 touchdowns. He had 1,200 yards. He was great in yards per route run. He consistently converted first downs, 17th in the NFL. And in yak per reception, he was 14th, 6.6. So with the speed that I've talked about, he can go. He's a jet with the ball because he's so fast. So Brian Thomas Jr. is in that archetype of receiver that everybody talks about, right? The Madden create a player. Fast, big, he can go. Okay? So at number 11, Brian Thomas Jr. Entering the top 10, Malik Nabers. Barely just nudges out Brian Thomas Jr. Okay? This was really close. The two LSU guys that entered the draft together, Nabers went a few spots ahead of Brian Thomas. The difference for me is I think Nabers is a better chain mover than Brian Thomas. I think he's more impactful in more areas of the field. I think Nabers obviously still has incredible speed, so he can beat you over the top. I think Thomas is more of the deep threat. He's more of the deep threat, but Nabers brings great value as well because he can run routes in the intermediate level really well, in the short area of the field really well, and he can change direction, I think, better than Brian Thomas. So that's kind of the difference for me. Also, with the ball in his hands, he's really hard to tackle. 5th in missed tackles forced with 19. He was only 20th in yards per route run compared to 6th with Brian Thomas, but he had 20 more catches. He had 109 catches compared to Brian Thomas at 87. So they both had 1,200 yards. They both played in pretty terrible situations. If anything, Malik Nabers played with probably worse quarterback play. He had the Italian Stallion. He had Drew Lock. He had Daniel Jones. So to have 1,200 yards, 109 catches, 80 yards per game, 7 touchdowns, with that quarterback play as a rookie, there's just not a lot of guys on earth that can do that. And that's because Nabers commands targets, because he separates, because he gets open, because his routes are awesome, because his quickness, his speed, it's ridiculous, right? So I just feel like he's a little bit more well-rounded than Tom. It's so close, but that's the comparison I have between the two. And he still was 6th in contested catches. Nabers maybe has slightly more inconsistent hands than some of the elite receivers in football, but in the tight windows, he was still 6th in football with 18 of those. Okay, so Nabers is special. Nabers is going to be one of the best receivers for a very long time. He's extremely young, so look out for him. He's at number 10 already. At number 9, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I have St. Brown at number 9 out of respect for his production. Typically I don't love to rank guys that are strictly slot players this high because I feel like it's easier to produce when you're that type of player. But it's hard to ignore what he's done over the last couple of years. Right? He's been a top 5 producing receiver now for 3 years in a row. 115 catches is crazy. 1,263 yards, 12 touchdowns, despite major injuries along the way, dealing with injuries. And you look at some of his elite production, advanced stats-wise, contested catches for a guy that's that small because he's working over the middle of the field in confined space with bodies around him. He has a great ability to stay focused, snatch the football, and take on contact and be willing to take damage. He was 3rd in the NFL in contested catches, despite being 5'8", okay? He was 2nd in the NFL in first downs. He's an incredible chain-moving player, whether it be through his route running and separation or it be his yak. He can do both at an equally awesome level. And as well, he was 12th in yards per route run. So in a lot of different categories, whether it be pure volume production, receptions, yards, touchdowns, 12 touchdowns as a slot player. That's crazy, right? But also advanced-wise, he was incredible. So you really can't deny his production. You can say that he's in a great offense. You can say that he's not as valuable as certain other profiles because he plays in the slot. But I don't care. He consistently moves the chains. He consistently is there on 3rd down. He consistently creates touchdowns. He consistently creates yards after the catch. He's consistently a problem for every defense he plays. So at number 9, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to continue to do this for Jared Goff. Jared Goff's go-to guy in the best offense in football last year, the best receiver on that team, Amon-Ra St. Brown. At number 8, Mike Evans. I nearly put Evans at 7. I'll talk about the 7 and 8 conversation in a second. But Mike Evans has basically been a top 10 wide receiver for the past 10 years. So he's going to rank somewhere in this range for pretty much everybody, I would hope. Even last year, if you just get in the trap of looking at his yards his yards, like 1,004, right? He got another 1,000-yard season. He's never not had 1,000 yards in a season, which is like Mike Tomlin never have a losing season. It's a really, really, really impressive stat. Like, what, he tied Jerry Rice or surpassed Jerry Rice? Either way, like, that's insane. And yeah, he had 11 touchdowns. Like, that's still awesome. I think last year he had like 12 or 13. He led the NFL maybe. But if you just look at those stats, you're like, oh, Mike Evans, he's still really good, but he's not like that good anymore, right? He's 7th in yards per route run. Like, he's still, like, yeah, he missed a couple games again. So I think the thing with Evans is, like, when he's on the field, he's a top 7, top 8 receiver in the NFL. He's one of the best X receivers in football, probably in the top 5, okay? He's still fast enough to get down the field and run by a cornerback still. He's incredibly big. He is a massive wide receiver. And I think his ability to just get inside of a cornerback and kind of beat him with his frame, his size, and his hands, and his wingspan is probably one of the best in football. One of the best I've seen, like, ever. Like, his ability to just, like, run a 10, 15-yard post, kind of body the guy out, and then get across the middle and catch the ball. He's really good at that. He's one of the most consistent touchdown producers in football because he's got such a long wingspan. He's taller than you. He's bigger than you. His body is wider, so it's hard to get around him. And then he has incredible body control. Some of the catches he makes are like highlight reels each and every week, especially in the red zone on fades. Like, he is the only guy that I actually like throwing fades to. Like, he's one of the only guys in football that I'm like, yeah, throw a fade to Mike Evans. It doesn't work for a lot of other people, but with Mike Evans, it actually works. And there was a time where I questioned Mike Evans to a certain degree at an elite level because I felt like his route running and his consistency down to down wasn't like some of the other elite players. But I just feel like every time it's an important game for the Bucs, every time he needs to step up, like the Commanders game, he dominated that game. I know they lost, but he was like the best player on the field outside of maybe Jaden Daniels. He was ripping the Washington Commanders to shreds. They were just throwing the ball to Mike Evans every play. And funny enough, it was against Marshawn Lattimore. But 7th in yards per route run, man. And still 11 touchdowns. Still another 1,000-yard season. Still a red zone beast, animal, cheat code. Mike Evans is still one of the best in the game. You just kind of got to look past that he'll miss a few games every year. That's maybe what holds him back from being 7 or 6 on this list. At number 7, Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins. Now, Tyreek Hill obviously did not have his best season last year. I don't really need to tell you about that. Only 959 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 81 catches, which would be a career year for probably 85-90% of the NFL. But for Tyreek Hill, that's an extreme embarrassment compared to the last 2 seasons, where in 2023, he was literally voted the best player in football. Like, he was literally the best player in the NFL in 2023. In 2022, he was probably the best receiver in football, him or Justin Jefferson. So in 22 and 23, he was the best receiver in the NFL, period. In 24, he wasn't. He was 42nd in yards per route run. And even in areas where he's consistently been amazing, yards per route run, he was actually first the last 2 years. And I think in 2023, he was at like nearly 4 yards per route run, which is like outrageous. Okay. But first downs, 15th, missed tackles forced, 16th, still good, but not amazing. Contested catches only 31st. He's never been amazing there. But yak per reception, like 3.5, that's 69th. So Tyreek took a major step backwards last year. And I think there were a lot of reasons why. First of all, I think physically he wasn't in his best condition. I think the offseason affected him. I think his off-the-field stuff, personal life affected him. I think that even the stuff with the the police early in the year. Like, I kind of feel like that affected him. I don't know. And then after that, I kind of think it was Tua. I kind of think it was the offense. I kind of think it was the involvement of Jonnu and Devonta Smith. I think it was the routes they were asking him to run in comparison to years past, where he was running a lot of different like fades into the sideline. Like, it was weird. I don't know what they were asking him to do, but from what I've seen this offseason, this is the confidence in Tyreek Hill. He ran a 10-1 100 meter dash. Okay. A 10-1. That's really, really good. That's Olympic like. Then I saw a video of him where he looked better than I've seen him in at least last year. Like, his routes, his quickness, his feet. I think for training for the races, he's actually gotten, weirdly enough, back to where he was from a quickness and speed perspective a couple of years ago. So if he's still at that level of speed and quickness, he's going to still be a top 10 receiver in football. So I'm willing to excuse one down year of production based on the offseason I've seen that he's having, right? The focus that I feel like he looks really good. Like, if you just look up Tyreek Hill, like what he's doing right now, it feels like he's on his game right now. He's going after it right now. He's working for it right now. And that's something I didn't see from him last year. Like, he lost his eye of the tiger, and it feels like it's back. And then also on top of that, he was literally the best receiver in the league before. So, and probably for like a few years, to be honest, like most valuable receiver. So I'm only willing to rank him so low based on one bad season. If you have a problem with that, you can let me know in the comments. But at number 7, Tyreek Hill. At number 6, Puka Nacua of the Los Angeles Rams. Some people will love this for Puka Nacua. Some people will deny that Puka Nacua is this good. But Puka Nacua, let's put it this way, led the NFL in yards per route run with 3.56 yards per route run. Nobody was even close to Puka Nacua. Nobody was even close to Puka Nacua last year in yards per route run. He averaged 90 yards per game, which I believe was second or maybe third in the NFL in yards per game, with 990 yards and 79 catches. Okay? He also was 5th in missed tackles forced, despite barely playing last season. 5th. He forced 19 missed tackles. 19. Imagine if he would have played the entire year. He was also 14th in yak per reception. So where Puka Nacua gets you is when he plays, he can take on volume unlike pretty much any other receiver in the NFL. He can go for 10 to 15 catches a game. And he can get the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and he can work the middle of the field at an elite clip. He's excellent on screens. He's excellent with the ball in his hands. He's so strong, powerful, and also just tough. Like, he is nails across the middle of the field. He's nails at taking on contact. Puka Nacua, I love his game. I love players like him. He's kind of like Chris Godwin, but more physical, if that makes sense. He's kind of like a better version of Chris Godwin, which is incredible. So, yeah, Puka Nacua, I don't think people realize how good he was last year when he was on the field because he missed such a significant portion of the beginning of the year. But again, 1st in yards per route run, 5th in missed tackles forced, 90 yards per game, which was top 3 in the NFL. So, Puka Nacua, he's entering that elite status of wide receivers. With Matthew Stafford, the guy that produces elite wide receiver production, Puka's going to continue to get force-fed. But the thing is, he's got to stay healthy, or else it's going to be harder and harder to put him in this range because at a certain point, you need to have that consistency to be able to stay on the field. Okay? At number 6. At number 5, CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I almost put CeeDee at 4, and there's a bit of an argument for number 4. And you guys let me know. Even number 3, you can make an argument that Lamb's number 3. But I have him at number 5 because I just think he's a little bit less well-rounded in terms of, I don't think if you put CeeDee Lamb at the X every play of the game, like you did with these other guys in the top 5, he wouldn't produce at the same rate. But he is the best slot player out of the top 5, okay? He's really, really good as a commanding chain mover, right? 6th in the NFL in contested catches. He was 3rd in missed tackles forced. That speaks to the well-roundedness of his game in terms of catching the ball over the middle of the field. He catches the ball in danger. Dak will rip him the ball with 2 guys headed for his head, and he'll still miss the guy. He'll still change direction and take off. CeeDee Lamb is one of the best yak producers in football. He's one of the best chain movers in football. He's one of the best third down. Everybody knows where the ball is going, and he still catches it, guys, in the NFL. Like, that's CeeDee Lamb. I don't think he's one of the best vertical, wow, he's going to run by you, explosive touchdown guy. He is one of the best chain movers. He's one of the best drive starters. He's one of the best yak, okay? So that's CeeDee Lamb. Really, really quick, really agile, really elusive, really tough in certain areas. I think he catches, some drops every once in a while where it's like, because he's always in tight spaces, people will say he drops the ball. But I kind of feel like that's just because where he is on the field. Like, eventually you're going to get crunched. You know what I'm saying? So, CeeDee Lamb, 1,194 yards, 101 catches. Despite Dak not playing the whole year, that's still a phenomenal year from their wide receiver 1 in Dallas. At number 4, A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, A.J. Brown is an efficiency monster. The thing that hurts A.J. Brown is the fact that he never sees the volume of Justin Jefferson, of CeeDee Lamb, of these other top producers in the NFL. But A.J. Brown has consistently proven since he was very young in the NFL with Tennessee that no matter how many times his team throws the ball, he's going to make the most of those opportunities. Last year, on the surface, 1,000 yards, 1,079 yards, 67 catches, 7 touchdowns. That doesn't seem like the 4th best receiver in football. But when you dive a little bit deeper, he had 83 yards per game, which was top 5. He was 2nd in yards per route run, 2.99, only behind the ridiculous 3.5 of Puka Nacua. Again, insane. He was also top 12 in contested catches. He's a big behemoth. And he was 9th in missed tackles forced. He's consistently one of the best players, not only vertically, but after the catch. And that is just a rare blend of talent. A.J. Brown is one of those players that no matter how good the cover guy is on the other side, there are simply times where you cannot cover him. There's simply times where he's too big, he's too fast, he's too physical for you. And he also has the agility to separate, which I feel like has always separated him from DK Metcalf. Okay? But even the Super Bowl, I mean, like, there were just plays where the Chiefs cannot cover him. Like, even in certain playoff games, in big moments, he can do it all. You know, you want to line him up in the slot and run a slant? Yeah, go ahead. You want to line him up out wide and run a straight go? Sure. You want to just run like a deep in-breaker? He'll probably body the guy and catch the ball. Like, A.J. Brown has consistently been top 3 yards per route run for a reason, right? He's not always featured in the way that some of these other guys are because he's in Philly or he's in Tennessee with Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley and they're running the ball 300 times a year. And so A.J. Brown doesn't really get to prove that from a volume standpoint. But from an efficiency standpoint, there's few that are as efficient in the 2 most impactful areas of the wide receiver position, vertically and after the catch. So that's why I have A.J. Brown at number 4. At number 3, Nico Collins of the Houston Texans. Nico Collins is one of the most underrated players in the NFL, in my opinion. He had 1,000 yards last year on 68 catches and 83.8 yards per game, which was even better than A.J. Brown, okay? So I think that only trailed Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Puka Nacua. So I think Nico was fourth. But he was third in yards per route run at 2.87, only behind Puka and A.J. Brown. And Nico Collins, I think, kind of like A.J. Brown, is incredible after the catch, over the top, but I feel like Nico Collins can just do everything well. Even in some areas where I feel like A.J. Brown is somewhat limited. I think Nico Collins actually has the route running of separating at all levels of the field. Like, A.J. Brown is a little bit more bulky, and so he's not always going to be able to crisply just break a route off the way that a much smaller human would be able to. But it feels like Nico, what he sacrifices in that bulk or that thickness that an A.J. Brown has, he's able to run routes at a very advanced level, similarly to like a Julio Jones. I know that's a crazy comparison, but Nico Collins has rare size, rare speed. He can line up at X all game and win. He doesn't run a very complex offense or route tree, and he still dominates. And when he plays the last 2 years, he's been second and third in yards per route run in the NFL. He also, if I'm not mistaken, was number one against man coverage, the best receiver in football. So it's really hard to cover him one-on-one because he can beat you with speed, size, or route running, which I don't know if there's anyone else, maybe besides my number one guy in the NFL, that can really say that. So Nico Collins is absurdly talented and I think deserves a lot more love. If he would have stayed healthy last year and not had that hamstring issue, he probably would have had like 1,500 yards and people would actually be talking about him this way. But unfortunately, he did have that injury. So I'm hoping he can stay healthy for a full 17. The last 2 years when he's been on the field, he's been unstoppable. At number 2, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson is a future Hall of Famer already, and I think he's like 25 years old. Justin Jefferson is wicked. He's special. He's sensational. And I think he proved that last year after going through a quarterback change. People would wonder, what's going to happen to Justin Jefferson without Kirk Cousins spamming him the ball and Cousins' unique sense of accuracy, timing, touch, all that sort of stuff. And Cousins was just willing to throw Jefferson the ball no matter what, right? So Sam Darnold, it was a different sort of factor here. But all of a sudden, what does Justin Jefferson do? He's the second most productive receiver in football, despite the quarterback change. He had 1,533 yards, going for 90.2 yards per game, 103 catches, and 10 touchdowns. That's an extremely well-rounded profile, right? Over 100 catches, 10 plus touchdowns, and 1,500 yards. There's just not a lot of players that can do that in the NFL, okay? Not only that, he was 5th in yards per route run. He was 8th in contested catches. He was 5th in first downs. No matter if it's a tight window throw, Jefferson has great hands. He can make some of the best catches you've ever seen. Whether it's creating separation consistently, he's going to be able to do that. That's proven through his yards per route run. Contested catches, okay? He does that whether it's on 3rd down and 20, or it's in the red zone, or it's over the middle to start a drive off of play action, okay? He's a good downfield playmaker, I think, because he's really good on double moves, and he's really good at the top of his route, and I think he's got just enough acceleration and speed and explosiveness to break away from a cornerback if they're not careful. But I think the unique thing is that you have to pay so much attention to Justin Jefferson, kind of like the way you did to Antonio Brown, where it was like you have to pay so much attention to him within 20 yards because he's probably the best receiver at route running and just like snapping his route off and creating separation and stopping and starting and changing direction and nuance and understanding and IQ and like just finding the spots. Like, you have to pay so much double team left and right, over the top, underneath, constantly double teamed, you have to always pay attention to him, that he can split through and he can outrun you down the field at times when you're not careful of having someone over the top and you're worried about him underneath and you're trying to zone him up underneath, and all of a sudden he can break over the top on a deep post and Sam Darnold can find him. So Jefferson has a very well-rounded game. I don't think he's as physically dominant as some of the receivers that we've already talked about or that we will talk about, but I feel like in terms of like a route running wide receiver school special, Justin Jefferson is special. So that's why I have him at number 2, arguably the best receiver any given season in the NFL. At number 1, Ja'Marr Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals. It's actually pretty crazy that Ja'Marr Chase is still as young as he is. He's on a Hall of Fame trajectory already. The man has never not had a great NFL season, and for me has basically been a top 5 receiver in the NFL every single year he's been in the league since 2021. This past year, though, was his work of art, was his best achievement of his career. A triple crown, 127 receptions, 1,700 yards, and 17 touchdowns for 100 yards per game. He led the NFL in yards per game, receptions, yards, and touchdowns. He also was 7th in yards per route run, 2nd in missed tackles forced, 1st in first downs. So he led numerous categories statistically. He also was nearly the best at forcing missed tackles, where he is a demon after the catch. Like, his physicality and acceleration is tough to, really tackle. Like, he shakes defenders. He breaks through with speed and acceleration. He has great balance. Like, his ability to take a screen, break the first tackle, get a first down. How often have we seen that? How often last year did we see him create a ridiculously long touchdown out of nothing? A screen or like a slant or a drag, like just creating like a 60-yard touchdown, just breaking away. How did he look faster last year? Like, what happened? But he was still 17th in yak per reception. So really, the guy just does everything really, really well. And he's not that tall, but he looks tall. There's something about his frame and his body that makes him look like a 6'4" wide receiver, but he's like 6'1". You know what I'm saying? I think it's the thickness of his frame, but yeah, like he's like, there were games when it's like, they're going to throw him the ball every play. Like, they're going to throw him the ball every play. Like, this defense can't stop him. He's going for 200 yards. He's there. One play he runs by the corner. One play he runs past the corner on a yak play. The next series, he's catching 10-yard out, 9-yard curl, 12-yard slant. Like, there's just like I think it was the Cowboys game where I'm like, there was one drive where it was like 10 yards, 12 yards, 15 yards, 15 yards, 10 yards, and it was Ja'Marr Chase every single play. And then there's other games against the Ravens where it's like an explosive, and it's like 3 touchdowns for 200 yards. So he just like has the full wide receiver package there, where it's like great after the catch, great down the field, great moving the chains, great in the screen game. So Ja'Marr Chase is the best receiver in football right now. And it's a battle between him and Justin Jefferson on a consistent basis. You guys let me know what you thought of my list, man. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Gronk, spike the like button for more rankings. Subscribe, jabronis, and we'll see you very soon. Peace.